All right, so we're going to look at kind of a mixed practice of all different types of derivatives from the beginning. And we'll start off by looking at what the product, quotient, and chain rule are. So the product rule, it says if f of x is a function which is the product of two different functions, find the derivative of f of x. Well, product rule, 1d2 plus 2d1. So if you number it 1 and 2, then f prime of x will be, let's see, 1 times the derivative of the second plus the second times the derivative of the first. There you go. Quotient rule, well, we know quotient rule is going to be low d high minus high d low over low squared. So if we denote the numerator as the higher function, the denominator as the lower function, then f prime of x will be low times the derivative of the top minus the top times the derivative of the low over the low function, the whole thing, squared. Chain rule, well, if you have a function raised to some power, whole function raised to a power, find the derivative with respect to dy dx. Another way just to write the derivative will be n times g of x, but now decrease the power by 1, and then take the derivative of what's being raised to the power. Okay? And more specifically, what if you have a function within a function, right? Like sine x of x squared plus 4. So you have a function inside of a trig function, for example. Find the derivative. Well, f prime of x will then be g prime of h of x times h prime, the derivative of the inside. We'll see that in an example in a second. So first thing you'll notice here, I got a bunch of practice here. You'll see in the top right here, I just copied and pasted from our lesson the trig functions, and why not? Because now we're home, we always have them readily available. You just have to know how to implement them. So I have the derivative of the 6 types of trig functions here. So let's just start off with f of x equals 1. What is the derivative of a constant? Well, f prime of a constant. What is the slope of a horizontal line at any given point? It's always 0. F of x equals x, that means f prime of x, 1. The slope of a linear function at any given point of the function y equals x, if you pick a point, the slope is just x, which is just, 1, which is, there you go. F of x equals 3x, so f prime of x will equal 3. F of x equals cosine x. So f of x equals cosine x, so f prime, the derivative, what is the derivative of cosine? Negative sine. Now, this one's actually not bad. It's negative sine x. It's technically times the derivative of what's inside, but the derivative of x is just 1, so we don't write that. There you go. What about a polynomial? F of x equals 10x cubed plus 4x squared minus 5. Just follow your normal power rule, right? 30x decrease the power exponent by 1 plus 8x decrease the power by 1, and then a constant derivative is 0. There you go. Don't need the first. Perfect. Same thing here. 3x squared plus 1. All right, now, sine of this function. Now again, this number 7 here, take a look at this, is what we're talking about here. G will be the sine function, and h of x will be what's inside. So take the derivative of the function on the outside, and then the derivative of what's inside. So let's go back to number 7 here. What is the derivative of sine? Well, that's cosine. Keep the inside. Times the derivative of the inside, 3x squared plus 5. What about the derivative of e to the x? Well, we saw that one. It's just e to the x times the derivative of the exponent, which is just 1, so I do not need that. Ln of x, remember the derivative is 1 over what's inside the ln parenthesis times the derivative of this what's inside this x, which is just 1, but we're not going to put that. What about 5e to the tan x? Okay, so we know that the derivative will be 5e to the tan x times the derivative of the exponent. What's the derivative of tan x? And if you got to look back up, it's secant squared x. Now, technically, it's secant squared x times the derivative of this part of secant squared, but it's just x, so we're done. It's just 1. Good. Let's do a couple more. Find the slope of the tangent line. What does this mean? This just means find the derivative. That's it. But it actually wants us to find the slope at that point. At what point of this function, ln of parentheses 4x minus 3 to the fifth at the point 1, 1. So this means when x equals 1. The y value really isn't going to matter to tell us what the slope is at that point. So first let's find the derivative of this function. Okay? So derivative, I see a chain rule here. 5 parentheses ln of 4x minus 3, that whole thing raised to the fourth, decrease the power by 1, there's the chain rule, times the derivative of the inside. Well, what's the derivative of ln 4x minus 3? It's 1 over 4x minus 3 times the derivative of what's inside the ln, which is 4. So now it tells us what is the slope when x is 1 of the tangent line, and we got to plug this in now. 5 times ln of, if you plug in 1, 4 times 1 is 4 minus 3, ln of 1 to the fourth times 1 over 1 times 4. All right, this becomes 1. Well, let's see what that is. What is ln of 1? E to what power is 1? Well, that's 0. And you can do it in the calculator too. So it's 5 times 0 to the fourth, which is 0, times 1 times 4, so you get 0. Anything times 0 is 0. And the last one. Find the equation of the line tangent to f of x for cosine 6x squared to the fourth when x equals 0. So remember, to find the equation of the tangent line, you need a point and you need the slope. You get the point by plugging into original. You get the slope by plugging into the derivative. So let's try it out. I usually like to find the derivative first. So what is f prime of x? So I see a chain rule here. 4 cos 6x squared to the third times derivative of the inside. What's the derivative of cosine? It's negative sine 6x squared times the derivative of 6x squared, 12x. Right? Be careful with the multiplication times the negative there, but that's what it is. That's the derivative. So if you want to now plug in 0, we get 4 times cosine 0. Right? You plug 0 and you get 0. Take that answer, cube it, times negative sine of 0 times 12 times 0. All right, so we get, let's see, what is cosine of 0? And we need a little, 0 degrees is right there. What's that point on the unit circle? It is 1 comma 0. It's cosine comma sine. So cosine of 0 is actually 1. So you get 4 times 1 cubed times, well, sine of 0 is 0. Well, sine of 0 is 0, negative sine is still 0 times 0. So this whole thing is 0. Okay, so the slope of the tangent line at 0 is 0. And now we have to plug into the original. What's f of 0? Let's see. So that's cosine of 6 times 0 squared is 0 to the fourth. Plug that in. Let's see. Cosine 0, we already did that. If you go 0 degrees around, cosine is 1 comma 0. It's on the unit circle. It's a quadrantal. You get 1. So this is 1 to the 4th, which is 1. So our point, when x is 0, y is 1, and our slope is 0. So it's the opposite, the slope, and the opposite. So you get y minus 1 equals 0 as a slope, x minus 0. Well, you just get y minus 1 equals 0. So what is this equation? Y equals 1. That's it. Okay.